So my name is Kevin Maynard. A little bit about me is I actually went to school at Western Illinois University where my undergrad is in accounting and I have a master's in business administration with a focus in finance. I have always been very passionate about the arts, and originally, I was wanting to be an accountant, and I realized that I think I'd be very I don't think I'd be very happy being just an accountant. So I was able to find a position or a career that merged my passion for business as well as my passion for the arts, which eventually led me here to Quad City Arts, where I'm the executive director. So at Quad City Arts, we do a little bit of everything in the arts. So we have obviously the gallery that we're recording this in today, but we also have a gallery in the Quad Cities International Airport. We have a public sculpture program. So many of the public sculptures that you see throughout the Quad Cities are part of ours, or we help facilitate their installation and their purchase. We also have a visiting artist series where we put performing artists into the schools throughout the Quad Cities. So in a given year, over 30,000 students will see a visiting artist and be able to see a performance. And for many of them, that's the only performing arts they will see for an entire year. So it's a very important program that we have. In addition to that, we have other programs like the Chalk Art Festival that's going to be happening in downtown Rock Island. We also have Festival of Trees. And Festival of Trees is sort of it is the kickoff to the holiday season here in the Quad Cities. It's also a big economic boon for the Quad City region. But for us, most importantly, it helps fund most of the things that we do. So we are obviously very happy with that event and the success of that event. I will give you the Cliff Notes version of why the arts are important. So arts and culture, obviously, we love to look at it, we love to experience it, but it does more for us than people realize. So just by being in this gallery right now, or just by going to see a show, studies show that you are happier right now. You are experiencing less anxiety. And that is a big thing, especially during the time of coming out of a pandemic. There is some hesitancy, there is some anxiety learning how to reintegrate into society. So that's huge. Fun fact about myself is, for whatever reason, I am now training to run a marathon. I love running 3 to 5 miles, exhilarating. The thought of running 26 sounds terrible, but for whatever reason I've decided I want to know if I can do it, so we're gonna find out. It'll be at September 26th, or right at the end of September. There's the QC marathon, so I decided that I'm gonna train for it. So I knew about Quad City Arts for years because prior to this position, I grew up in the Quad Cities. Really just outside of the Quad Cities in Geneseo, Illinois. So I knew about Festival of Trees, I knew a little bit about the programming at Quad City Arts, but eventually my life would lead me to running the Orpheum Theater in Galesburg, Illinois. And since we were in booking performing artists, we were working with some of the same artists that were coming to the Quad Cities to perform with Quad City Arts. Somebody sent me a job posting for this position and said, "I think you'd be perfect for this." And then obviously I did a whole bunch of research and found out way more about Quad City Arts. What makes the Quad City special to me is it has the amenities of a very large city, but it has that small town feel. So what I love about, I live in Rock Island, and I love that I know my neighbors, I talk with my neighbors, and at the same time, I also can enjoy a Broadway show at the Adler. I can see great bands coming through at the Tax Slayer Center, the Rust Belt. There's just about everything. There's everything. I have everything that I want right here in the Quad Cities, especially when it comes to arts and culture, because that's obviously very passionate. I'm very passionate about that. Some of the murals a lot of the murals that you see throughout the Quad Cities are actually facilitated through us, through various artists, or through our Metro Arts program. So a lot of the murals you see are actually done by students who are ages 15 to 21. And then obviously there's some graffiti art and some different tagging that happens. But I'm one of those people that we actually enjoy a lot of graffiti art. I mean, when you see stuff coming through on, especially the trains right out here, there's some really great art out there. And honestly, if we could figure out how to tap into that and showcase that, that's just another avenue for the arts.
Is there a program that you guys could start where they could do graffiti art here in a more organized manner?
So we've talked about a lot of different ideas in a way to do that. Part of the difficulty with most arts endeavors is, well, it's twofold. It's finding the right artist, and then obviously it's funding. So, but yeah, I think that there is an avenue to make that happen, and I think that I would say eventually you will see a similar program to that. Stylistically, we're starting to see different forms of art show up on walls, especially like on our public streets. A great example of that is the Spiegel building in Moline. Moline put out a call for an artist, and they found an artist that they wanted to basically have the message of possibility. And so the artist they found, his name is Brandon Neese, who is a local artist as well, but he created something that is, it's really impressive, but it's very different stylistically than what we have in the Quad Cities. And so what we're actually kind of starting to notice is that stylistically, more people want that style. But they also want like large scale murals. So a lot of our murals that you see throughout the Quad Cities tend to be, 6 to 8 feet and down, and then obviously like very wide, a lot of retaining walls underneath bridges, that kind of stuff, which is great, and it's a lot of fun. The biggest reason for it being so low is that, well, you don't have to rent a lift. It's a lot easier to put kids on a ladder or some scaffolding versus a big boom lift. But what I think is we're seeing that trend is that people want to see more large scale stuff. So they want to see the side of a building covered with a mural, and I think that you'll see that soon. We're part of the Quad Cities Cultural Trust, which is basically it's a funding mechanism for 6 partners. So we have a very close relationship with the trust, but those other partners being the Figgy, River Music Experience, Quad Cities Symphony, the Botanical Center, and the Putnam. So we have a good relationship with those arts and culture entities, a very close relationship because of our partner status with the Cultural Trust. But in addition to that, we try to work with a number of artists and other arts organizations because we believe in that saying, a rising tide raises all boats. That is very true in the arts. So the more art that we can have in the Quad Cities, the better the Quad Cities is, and just the better the region is. So more opportunities for artists helps attract younger folks. So we do our best to try to keep in touch with all of those folks. We also currently are working with KWQC to partner with them on their QC Live show, which happens every Friday, and to highlight local artists, but also be able to showcase some of their artwork as well on that show. I don't play an instrument, I don't really draw or anything. I do occasionally act. Okay. It's been a while since I've been on the stage. Years ago, I did shows at Playcrafters Barn Theater, as well as Richmond Hill Barn Theater, and a couple other places locally. And then, honestly, with work, I just kind of took a hiatus from it. So I would love to learn how to paint, but if you've ever just like picked up a brush, like it's not that easy. So, the great thing about arts and culture, and really just about an arts organization, is that it really takes all kinds. My art would be understanding how the business aspect of things work, and making sure that artists are able to get paid, or that we're able to continue to do programming because we have the funding. That is a very important role, and so without that, we could still have a lot of art and a lot of things happening in the Quad Cities, but it doesn't create a good artist community. One of our biggest goals is that when anything happens in relation to the arts, that artist is getting paid, because that is important. That's how you grow a good community, a good culture. So the gallery that we're standing in right now, and the gallery at the Quad Cities International Airport, those we put out a call. We use a service called Cafe, and so artists are typically looking to showcase their work and to be able to sell their work. So they find us that way, but we're also trying to advertise to them and let them know, hey, show your cool stuff here. But when it comes to specific projects, we will also put out a call, but sometimes, it's a very particular style, and so we might search out somebody for that. In the same sense that when we do put out our calls, we do search out certain artists because we want to make sure that we're reaching a wide demographic of folks. As far as places to go in the Quad Cities, I love running on the bike path, and I love running in our downtowns because it takes you past a lot of public sculptures and a lot of murals, and so there's always, if I veer off my normal path, I find a sculpture that I didn't know existed or a mural I didn't know existed, and I try to tell people about that. The Figgy obviously is a fantastic attraction. Really impressive building, but also gets some really great exhibits coming in. I think in June they have a pop art exhibit, which is going to be really fantastic. That's my places to go to, I guess, for art. Words of advice for aspiring artists. So one of the coolest things that we started during the pandemic that we have continued, I will say we're on a break for the summer right now, is I have the pleasure of getting to interview artists on our artist interview series called 7 with Kevin. And so it's on our YouTube video, it's on our Facebook pages. But through that, like, I've learned a lot. We always ask them, like, what's your piece of advice? And almost consistently it comes down to create art, practice. Look at art you like listen to music you like, and try to replicate that. That's the way that you get better at your skill. It's really just by doing it. So my best advice is get out there and create art and find places to showcase your art. It can be very daunting to, put your artwork out there to be able to be seen on the walls. But without that, you can never really get better. Putting yourself out there for calls, a lot of times you can get feedback. For like our visual arts director, Dawn, if you put in your artwork to showcase and wanted some feedback, she would tell you, this is why you didn't get accepted this time around. And it helps artists to be able to do a little bit better, or to, maybe just, sometimes it's just taking better pictures of your work, because that's a skill in itself. I had a friend who saw the posting online, read the description, and was like, this is you, which I was very flattered by. I will say I was very flattered, and I was like, I don't know if I shared that same thought, but obviously I applied, and here I am. But really what led me down the path of the arts is, growing up, I love performing. I love being on the stage. For the longest time, I was going to school to be an actor, and then really, I didn't even get into college before I realized, like, oh, I like acting as a hobby. I don't know if I'm going to like it as much if it's where my food is coming from. I also am very much a person who plans things out, so not knowing where my next gig is going to be, I think would cause me a lot of anxiety. So I did a 180 and started studying business, because I happen to like math and numbers as well. I was working for an arts presenting organization at Western Illinois University, and I was actually in my master's program, and my mentor with that organization said to me that, like, basically made a comment that, people do this in the real world, like they book artists. And I am almost afraid, like, ashamed to say, like, it never occurred to me that, like, I could leave college and still, like, work with artists, like, in the arts. Like, I was just like, oh, now I go be an accountant. This is what I do. But that's really it. It's like I just kept involved with the arts and realized that eventually this is what I wanted to do. Was I have a passion for it, and I wanted to be able to kind of move that along, like move the arts forward. And I'm happy to be able to do that right in the area that I grew up. We are partnering with Alternating Currents because we are bringing in a really cool and weird artist. The group is called Squonk Opera. The show that they will be doing is called Hand to Hand, and it is a jam band-esque group of musicians who create, like, really fantastic music. But sort of the catch is that they have, in this particular show, giant hands that are on either side of the stage, and we're talking like 20 plus feet high hands that are pneumatic and fully articulating. So during Alternating Currents, for at the beginning of August, you'll be driving down River Drive in Davenport, and you will see these giant hands right underneath the Sky Bridge. They're good musicians, but just seeing the way that, like, they articulate and move with these hands and incorporate the hands into the show, it's like, I can't even do it justice describing it. It's just delightfully weird. Due to COVID, we trying to figure out how to reopen and how to do things safely, especially, over the past year. It's like, what will be okay? And so we settled that over the summer, almost all of our events, we decided we're going to be outside. If we're doing a public event, we're going to do it outside, because that's the safest way to do things right now. And we wanted something big and something weird, and we both, our performing arts director and I, separately in life, had met Squonk, or had seen, talked with their agent, and just kind of sort of filed it away, because we just didn't have the time or a venue to go, where can we do this? But this year was like, we're doing only outdoor stuff. We want to do something big and weird, so this is the time. Like, let's bring in Squonk. So that's how we reached out to them, and then basically through conversations. I mean, we like to partner with Alternating Currents for things in the past. We definitely support having an arts festival in the Quad Cities, and we found out when it was, and we said, hey, we've got this group, and we showed it to them, and they're like, yes. This is exactly what we want, and that's pretty much how that came to be. So, as an industry, arts and culture took a massive hit across the U.S. and really across the globe. Arts organizations were the first to close, and we were the last to reopen. And still, I guess last week, the state of Illinois, like, we can finally have full capacities and audiences. Most theaters are not, though. Like, they're still moving towards, capacity limits and pods. As an industry, for just 2020, for the last year, we are down over 52% in revenue. So that's huge, and that's industry-wide. So obviously there are varying degrees there. So here in the Quad Cities, we saw a complete stop for a little bit of art. We did see some really creative things happen. We saw a lot of people, quickly make that shift online and figure out how to use Zoom and Facebook and other platforms to still get art out there. So one of the coolest things that I think really happened during COVID is it taught artists to better utilize their social media. So we're seeing, we always saw a lot of people selling art through their social media. We're seeing that done more, and I think done better. And I think people are being more successful at being able to market themselves on social media and really their website. So that's a great positive that happened from it. But arts industries, arts organizations, we're down on revenue, we're down on performances, and that's because we haven't been able to put butts in seats and put people into buildings. And I think that right now, especially, you're going to start seeing a big shift. Everything's coming back, and everybody wants to do something right now. So, other aspects of the arts, students, especially when we start looking at socioeconomic status, so the lower you are in the socioeconomic ladder, like, this plays a bigger percentage. So students who experience art and have an arts-rich experience every year while they are going to school are more likely to graduate from high school. They are more likely to go to college, and they're also more likely to go to college for things like becoming a doctor or a lawyer. So it's not just like, oh, I'm going to go be an actor, I'm going to go write poetry, because that's what people think. Like, oh, well, he's artistic, so he's going to go and become a poetry major. And you're like, no, like, a lot of these people, like, yes, they become poetry majors, they become artists, but a lot of them are going, they're being doctors, they're being lawyers. So they're doing a lot of things that are sort of that you may not think that they would go towards. The other things is that statistically, they score higher, about 100 points higher on SATs if you're more involved with the arts. As you grow older, the more you do art, specifically creating art or participating in art, so things like drink and draws, like just going out and doing something like that, or going to art galleries, or going to see shows, your brain, for whatever reason, helps push off dementia at that point by using art. And that's, for our aging population, that is huge. So, for parents and grandparents, they should be coloring, they should be playing an instrument, they should be dancing, they should be going out and seeing art. For younger demographics, especially public art, is increasingly important, because public art, people want to visit places that have cool art. If you think of any place that you want to go visit or that you like visiting, I can almost guarantee you there is good public art there, or there are performances happening in the Performing Arts Center or in the bars. But we also are finding that in younger age brackets, people are more focused on public art when they're choosing a place to live. So when people, in the millennial and the Gen Z generation are looking for a place to live, they're considering public art. They want to be in a place that has art, and that's murals, that's sculptures, and that's also performers in performing arts centers. So that's why one of the big things we're doing here is we want to push more public art into our community to get people like you to stay and to want to start your life here or start your business here. But that's the other thing is that businesses, so like creativity, huge. Fortune 500 companies list creativity in their top 3 of what they're looking for. So being able to have a creative population in the US is absolutely huge, and that is created through the arts and through engaging with the arts. So there's all sorts of other health benefits and tourism benefits, but the more art a community has, it drives cultural tourism. And cultural tourists spend nearly twice as much when they're visiting a community. So that's why public art is important to the Quad Cities.